Music, sound seems to be on. Things are ready. Hello. Okay, I think we got everything. Hello. Hello, hello. Welcome, 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 my friends. Today, we are going to be discussing, we're going to do another ACT podcast, and the original idea provided to us by actually Interstellar Games, or Extraterrestrial, whatever name he goes by, as energy. But as I was thinking about talking about energy, there's a lot of things revolving around energy, but I just don't see how I can relate it to the idea of critical thinking. So maybe down the line we can discuss that. I mean, I have some ideas, but they require discussing other things first, which would take several podcasts probably, before we could get into the topic of how energy relates to critical thought. So what I decided today is to talk about the first rule of funny, the rules of improv, and how rules of improv can help in just the idea of critical thought, and how we all can use it to not only be funnier to each other, you know, make jokes and have a good time, but also it helps us change the way we think about things when we're given information. And the first rule of improv, guys, the very first rule of improv is never say no. Always, it goes by many names. It's called yes-anding. It's called never say no. It's called just say yes. There's a few different ways it goes by, but in general, the whole point is if you're given a premise, you just don't say no. You say yes to it, and you add something to it. So an example like this is if you're on stage and somebody is talking to you and they say, "What? You like fish and peanut butter while doing a handstand on a rope line over a shark tank?" Then instead, you wouldn't be like, "No, that's weird, that's strange." No, you like, "Yes, that is what I'm doing, and I'm doing it barefoot." So you accept the premise, and then you add more to it because it's funnier that way. It's funnier to everybody when that happens. We were discussing this last week. About how there's lots of people not lots of people. It's just natural. It's natural for us to shut things down, to say no, to use our own information that we have in our heads as more accurate, just naturally believing it's more accurate. But what improv does, it allows you to stop saying no in your head. So that's how this relates to critical thought. I've noticed for a long time in myself that for a while I would start, if people gave me information or told me like how to do something in a game or something, where it was okay. Like, so we'll go back to this in a bit, talk about streamers and spoilers, because that's a whole different thing, where streamers are trying to not get spoiled by something. But assume I want to know how to play a game, and I want to know the best way to do things, where spoilers are not involved. Then, if somebody tells me the best way to do something, for a long time there, when I first, for a while, what I did was, I would, and this happens with a lot of people that want help on something. They'll be like, nah, the way I'm already doing it is better. It's my way of doing it. I like it a lot, and I just prefer doing it my way. No matter how illogical their way may be, they just will, and myself included, just see that as Nah, I'm just gonna do it my way, no matter how much better your way is. I'm just gonna do my way. And that's the same exact idea, is that initial no. It's that shutting down of information rather than accepting it and applying it to your own techniques and using that as part of your own repertoire then, because it makes you stronger. And we can even see that how that is used even in my Pokemon team for our Pokemon Showdown that we did. For example, we did Pokemon Showdown, and then all these different teams had one Pokemon strat that was just so powerful. Just one strat on one Pokemon that is so strong that it can take out full teams by itself. But all these people only had these one Pokemon. Each team had one Pokemon with some crazy strat. I'm all like, why don't we take these single Pokemon with these crazy strats and put them all on the same team? So then you have 6 Pokemon that each have such crazy strats that they can destroy a full team by themselves each. That's a better team. But so many people don't want to do that because they have their preferred Pokemon. They don't want to branch out because they care too much about the Pokemon they use, rather than just accepting that there's a answer that is going to be the best and going to be the best of the best of the best. And if you put a team like that together, you're going to have a very hard time losing unless somebody else has that same kind of team. And that is the first rule of improv. So, now that we've gotten an introduction in, let me say hi to people in the chat. I know I just rambled on and kind of gave a preamble of what the first rule of improv is and how it affects how we can all use it. Let's see who we got. We got Ethan M, Halo Smythe, Nanya, Brandy, Mighty Ram, Vanillio, and Shamar. Thank you guys so much for joining in today. Also, I see up here we got Boax and Miguel with the likes and retweets on the Twitters. Thank you guys so much for joining. We are currently talking about how the first rule of funny, yes-anding, is important in both comedy and inside our everyday lives. It's very important to be willing to accept the other person's idea and then utilize it. So in the case of being funny and improv, the very first thing you want to do is say yes and. As we were saying earlier, if somebody gives you a crazy premise that it might even personally offend you, right? It might even personally offend you, but you still have to accept it. Otherwise, you're going to you're going to make the whole thing fun. Like, say that they suggest that you bought cheap coffee and that offends you, because you only like the most expensive coffees. Like that, and that shouldn't, it shouldn't offend you, but you can't be offended when accepting that. You can't be offended when accepting that. You just have to be like, okay, yeah, I like cheap coffee. Now, granted, of course, we're not talking about actually offensive things that people have every right to be offended about. I'm talking about things that people have no right to be offended about, like whether they drink cheap coffee or expensive coffee. Like, there's no reason. There's literally no reason that anybody shouldn't accept that, Say that you don't even like coffee, and they suggest that you love coffee in improv. You then just accept it, and you're like, yeah, I like my coffee, and I like it with 1,000,000 pounds of sugar. Even if you hate coffee, that's what makes it funnier. That's what that makes it far funnier for us, is to for everybody, is just to accept accept the yeses and then continue with an and. How are you guys doing today? Welcome again. Thank you guys so much for joining. How are you guys liking this talk so far? Because I didn't know what I wanted to go today, what I wanted to talk about, but I knew that I wanted to talk about something that related to critical thought. And you guys seem to really enjoy this podcast last week. So, so, I thought we could continue the talk. Your problem is that you say yes too much. You can say yes too much. I actually had that same problem when I was younger, and that's why I do not have very many friends in real life, like friends, They all wanted to use me, all of them, every last one of them. They only liked me when I could do things for them. And when I didn't want to do things for them because it was just me doing things for them all the time and them taking advantage, I learned that there's no point. No point with that. So I stopped. And then I just don't let people get into the position to ask me for things anymore. So I didn't stop my saying yes anding. What I did was I just removed the problem of the people asking me for things. So I just don't let people get in the position to ask me for things unless I'm willing to help them with their thing. Because people just take advantage, and they will take advantage. Even if they don't realize it, they'll think it's just easier. And saying yes to everything can be problematic. I mean, it's not really in the realm of improv, because when you're dealing with real life situations, saying yes to everything, that's problematic. But we're not talking about real life, because you can't just say yes to everything in real life. If you're trying to be funny and you're on a stage in an improv setting, it's very much something you want to do. You very much want to say yes and continue the joke. And then in real life, you do have to add more critical thought, and that's my whole point of what we're talking about, is being able to understand when to say no and when to say yes to anything. And very often we'll see that people, myself included, again, as we were saying, is like at the beginning, that we'll often say no. We'll jump to a judgment immediately, and we'll be like, no, my way is better. What I like to do is the better way, and I think it's better because I think it's better, without actually having any real reasons why it's better, other than that we just like it more, and that is, it's hard to get over. It's hard to get over that, but the first step of getting over something like that is being aware it exists. And that's the nature of fallacies, is that we all have these fallacies, that these logical fallacies that we do, that when you think about it don't make sense. And the only way you can really understand that you have fallacies is by realizing them within yourself. And saying no, snapping to a judgment, is itself a fallacy. I don't remember the name of that fallacy, but there's like 20, 30 logical fallacies that even people that think that they're the best critical thinkers in the world will commit. Even myself has logical fallacies. I'm not a perfect critical thinker, and I'll never say I am. If I say that logical fallacy, if I say I have perfect critical thought and no logical fallacies, therefore that is a fallacy to think I'm perfect. It's just not the case. Nobody's a perfect critical thinker, and if somebody ever says that they're a critical thinker and they have nothing to learn, then they've forgotten how to learn altogether. Your problem is what other people think about you. Well, you shouldn't care too much about what other people think about you. I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean. If you are a kind person who does not create any negative issues for other people, then you should not be concerned with what they think. If you're doing negative things to another person and they're not liking maybe you just stop doing the negative things, right? Like, you see what you're doing that people don't like, and then you stop doing those things. That's a nature of critical thinking. A lot of people do things wrong, and then they say that everybody else is the issue. They'll be like, no. It can't be me. It has to be everybody else. Crazy people don't think they're crazy. Crazy people don't think they're crazy. Crazy people think, I'm not saying you're crazy. I'm just saying this is an idea that we have to understand, is that like crazy people don't know they're crazy. They think everybody else is insane, and they're the only one who thinks that they're that they're good, or that they're not insane, right? And that goes for all of us. Nobody thinks that they're the bad guy. Nobody thinks that they're doing things wrong, unless they're willing to really reflect on themselves and use some critical thought. You don't do negative things. It's just like you think you're not good enough. Well, that is a personal problem. And that alone will change things, will change how people see you. If you don't have confidence in yourself, other people are not going to have confidence in you. Which is kind of strange to say, but important. You have to have confidence in yourself before others are going to have confidence in you. It's very important, because people like confidence. In fact, you can project confidence and like you know everything, and more people will believe it than if you know everything and then you're just unconfident about what you say. It's really insane. And that's kind of the point of critical thought, is to be able to one reason of critical thought is to be able to understand when somebody is just confident in what they say, or when somebody is accurate in what they say, Because when we hear somebody with confidence, it's easy. It's easy to just accept what they say as the truth, because they seem to know it. Especially if they're an expert in the field, like say a doctor says something. But just because they have their degree doesn't make them right. In fact, people are very wrong a lot. That doesn't mean that they're always wrong, because they very well could be right. But you just have to be willing to accept their information and then verify if that information is correct. Be it a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where the information comes from. Being able to accept that information is in the world, and then being able to deduce whether that information is true or not, is the difference between just falling into a trap of yes anding everything in real life and in comedy, but also as well as just understanding through critical thought, because it's very important. It's very important. We all can easily lose our way through somebody who's just speaks with confidence. I mean, heck, I'm speaking with confidence right now, which then, therefore, is something you guys have to take into account. I'm speaking with confidence, but you know what I'm going to tell you? Verify everything I say. Never take me at my word. Verify everything I say. If I'm wrong, point it out to me. Tell me how I'm wrong, and we'll discuss it. And we'll come to a conclusion that is more accurate together. Objection, hearsay. Bumble. I hope that you guys are doing great as well. You came from a serial podcast there. I agree. There's a famous quote: "Manners maketh man." Is that right, Ajax? Where did that come from? Where did that did come from? Do do ba ba ba. Okay. Let's take a breather real quick says. Nice. So, what is important for us to be understanding is that to be funny, we want to yes and everything. And how that connects to critical thought is just being willing to accept somebody else's answer without immediately shutting it down and thinking that we already have the better answer, right? There's we may have the better answer, like ourselves, to any situation, but that doesn't mean we do. And being able to yes and people and is just being able to accept other people's information as information before shutting it down is a huge thing. Just being willing to accept the information alone, and that's so hard. It's so hard, especially again in improv. It's very hard to get over that initial no reaction. Again, as our example was earlier, say that somebody in improv suggested you like coffee. They're like, you like coffee with goat milk, and then say that you're the other person and you just don't like coffee at all. Coffee to you is just nasty. You don't like coffee, even a drop of it. You just hate it. But you don't say, ew, I don't like coffee at all. Why are you doing that? That really is it really puts a jam in the whole bit. Really what you got to do is, even if you don't like coffee, you got to be like, yeah, and I also put in 4 pounds of sugar and a piece of my hair. It gives it flavor and character, you know. So it can be more ridiculous, but you're more willing to accept the crazy, because things can get really wild, and especially in improv. If you guys have ever been in an improv situation, you would know. I personally, one of my courses I took in a school I went to was improv, and it was really a great experience, super fun, great people, and it was just fun all around to do all the time. And it's surprising how much it relates to the idea of critical thought and working together and being part of a group that makes a collective decision. That sounds good. Coffee with hair, bro. That sounds nasty, Shamar. It's very important that you yes and with your partner. Then you make sure that you set the scene. Let's go over really quick how to just be funny in an improv, right? So, in the rules of improv, the first rule is yes and. Is always yes and. Is do never say no. Because once you say no, then you're shutting down the scene. There is a side note here that you can say no if it's somehow yes anding still. So, an example of this would be like, the same example. You like goat milk in your coffee? Well, you could say no. You could be like, no, I use rabbit milk in my coffee. Goat milk, man. That's like, man, so 1997. So stupid, bro. So you see that you could say no, but you're still yes anding. You know, you're not just removing the entire thing. Say that you didn't like coffee, as the example was, and be like, and you still had problems. You could be like, no, I like tea with goat milk. You know, you're still somehow yes anding and continuing the joke. But if you just say no and then you just stand there silently and wait for them to say something else, it just gets awkward and then they have to think of something else. Okay. Shamar, that is a highly inappropriate random thing. So I'm just going to remove the comment because that's really unnecessary. Like, that is I don't even know where you would even... Anywho, I'm going to move on. You can't do improv for fear of being made fun of. And that's actually a great reason to do improv. Is because of you worried about being made fun of. If you can make a fool of yourself, then you can't fear being made fun of because you've already made a fool of yourself. If what are they gonna do to make fun of you? This goes more into the idea of the not caring too much about what other people think of you. And that can be tough, but it really, truly is important. And if you do improv, it makes you if you are actually up on stage with other people doing improv stuff, it actually makes it much easier to be on camera. For example, I used to hate being on camera for any reason whatsoever. And so after that improv, though, I'm far less worried about it because I made myself look a fool all the time. in improv, you don't really have much of a choice in the matter. You have to kind of make yourself look a fool. And you have to be okay with it. And that being okay with it will allow you to then understand when it's okay that you make mistakes. We all make mistakes, and then we have to learn from these mistakes, which is the important part of everything. That's the core of critical thought in general. What's up, Kenny? How are you doing? That is the core thought of critical thought in any respect at all. Any respect. The core thought that we have to always take in is that we ourselves may be wrong about something. That's what the yes and is about. That is what we talked about with misconceptions last week. That's what we're talking about. That's what we will talk about almost every week. Somehow is going to relate to how every person, myself, you guys, every person in the world is going to be wrong about things. And how you accept being wrong about something is going to change everything. You can beat yourself up for being wrong, but that doesn't solve any issues. If you just beat yourself up for being wrong and you don't learn from the mistake, you're just going to make the same mistake again, and then you're going to beat yourself up again. Say that that's your reason. Or if you think you're correct about something and you're wrong, and you believe it, then you're going to be wrong again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and then you're not going to understand how you're wrong because you believe you're correct. So it's very important to understand when we ourselves are wrong and probably more importantly, not being upset with ourselves for being wrong. Rather, accepting that we don't know everything and that we can say the words, I don't know, and continue on with our lives. We don't have to know everything. It's the nature of science altogether is to not know. People think the science... There's a lot of people in this world that think that science is unchanging, is immovable, is this defined set of things that is and always will be. But that is not the case. Science is ever changing. What science is to us is our best guess. And we can even say that the core principle of science is a yes and. The very core principle of science itself is yes anding. Because what science does is in a way yes anding because it accepts another person's other ideas and adds it to their own. And then as we add these bits and pieces together, we get a larger complete picture. And it may not always be complete. In fact, science is incomplete. There's a lot of things that don't match. It doesn't mean that there's not answers, but it's ever changing. It's dynamic. So even science itself yes ands, which is just crazy to think about how important such a small idea can be, and just the idea of accepting the answers that somebody else might have given that make more sense in the way of science. In the way of improv, they don't have to make sense because you're making a joke. You're not making reality. You're not trying to describe reality. You're trying to make somebody laugh, which can be very different from the reality. In fact, I would hope it would be very different from reality. I mean, well, you can do comedy in the sense of, like, you know, real jokes or relatable jokes. That definitely is a thing. That coffee is very, very coffee. Woo! Woo! That coffee, wow. Super strong. It's important, though. Being able to say yes and is very important to progression of a skit, progression of our own way of thought, and ways of being funny. There's a lot of ways to be funny, and it's funny how it is funny how critical thought is such an important process of that. And it's not something that you even would think of. It's not even what's crazy is not even really what you would think of as critical thought, but that's how deep it goes into everything we do, and everything we could do is really using our heads to understand more, be it in comedy, be it in reality, be it in science, you know? Sometimes you have to know your audience. Yes, that is actually a good point, Shamar, is that indeed, knowing your audience can be a huge thing when trying to be funny. So, for example, if you're in a crowd of, where comedy kind of started in improv was on stages, usually with a drunk audience. So, they had to, so knowing their audience, they would have to play to that crowd. It's not the same thing that they would have to do if they were improvising in front of, like, a bunch of college students, which is where I did improv. I did improv on a stage in front of a bunch of college students, so they were also in improv. I didn't do any shows or anything. And it does indeed can change the comedy, for sure. I personally like comedy that is like wordplay. I like puns. I like clever dropped jokes, you know, things like that, things that make you think. That's the kind of comedy I think is really the funniest. The comedy where you're like, what? Oh, you know, like that. That's pretty funny. And wordplay is just super funny. I've been watching this content creator recently who does wordplay, and he does words that almost sound problematic, but then he's just he's using it in a different tone, and it's just hilarious how it's done. It's he does this. What's that? He does that. He like looks off screen, and like it's as if somebody else is talking to him, and he's yes-anding even a fake person. He's yes-anding them to make his comedy bits funnier, and then he lets the viewer kind of determine what is said by this other person that might be in the same room. Top Humor is the Assumption song. I do not know what that is. So how are you guys enjoying this conversation? Is this something you guys enjoy? And I hope it is. This is one topic I wanted to talk about. I mean, really, it's kind of thrown together. I had... So Extraterrestrial gave us the idea of talking about energy for this week, but I was looking into all the things I can talk about energy, and as I was saying earlier, it's very hard. Currently in our discussions, it would be very hard to connect the idea of critical thought to energy, because we need to talk more about critical thinking in other fields first, like yes-anding, for example. And it's super important. It's super important. I mean, but we can discuss more on that later. What I was thinking about next week, what we would talk about is the importance of subtlety. So what I wanted to talk about with importance of subtlety would be like songs, and like something you guys might not have noticed, but is super important. My shadow. See this shadow? See this shadow right here underneath me? That wasn't there last week because it wasn't on the scene. But how subtle this is makes a huge difference, because then when I look, and what people look at somebody, and they'll feel like something's just off. They'll feel like something's just off. Like this background would feel just off, right? By watching me on this background, something would just feel off, and you wouldn't notice what that issue is, right? You wouldn't notice what that issue is. You just feel like something's off about it. Can I actually turn off my camera really quick? Sorry, not my camera. Let me see if I can actually... Let me turn off the shadow. So, now you see that I have a shadow, but it's like all broken. And now you can see behind me, and just, it feels off. It feels like it's a fake background. And it's so subtle. You don't even notice it. So that's what I was thinking we would talk about next week, is subtlety and how it matters. And when it comes to a bunch of different things. Let me turn on the... Another thing that is hard is more people join your stream. You have to find something they all like. Oh, critical thought. It's all going to boil down to critical thinking, Shamar. Every single one of these that we do, they're all going to boil down to the same thing. Critical thinking. And how critical thinking is somehow related to it. And how we can use critical thought to determine the best course of action for ourselves, for our environments, for each other, and really just make the world a better place, right? Because I strongly believe through critical thought, if everybody was willing to apply critical thought as best as they can, not 100% critical thought, mind you, definitely not 100%. We're not robots. We're not robots. I don't want nobody trying to 100% their lives in critical thought. That's just a robot. You still have to have your emotions. You still have to care about things, you know. You're not an emotionless machine. And if you were 100% critical thinker, you would just be an emotionless, logical thinking machine. Which wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be good. You'd lose your humanity. You'd lose your compassion. You'd lose your want for things. You know, and no, that's no way. That's no way to live. You know, you wouldn't want to paint or make music or dance or enjoy things, because things are beautiful. So many things in this world are beautiful that you definitely want to enjoy. So 100% do not want to think 100% critical. But definitely I strongly believe the use of critical thought in everybody's lives would resolve so many world problems, because if rich people use critical thought, they would then find ways to use their funds and understand that using their money for the benefit of humanity is a good idea. They would realize that. And people on the smaller scale would then choose as a community the same solutions that benefit everybody. Nobody would then be thinking about themselves, because they would understand through critical thought how helping others helps them. like they can be a little bit selfish because they're helping other people. That's eventually going to help them and or their family, or their community or something. So you can then progress and do more and greater things that benefit everybody. And a lot of people don't want to use this, and it's unfortunate because it's such an important idea. It's such a crazy important idea that everybody should try to at least implement in some way. It's just the idea of critical thought, and probably the most important thing is understanding when we ourselves do something wrong, which are called logical fallacies. These fallacies are prevalent in everything we do. We talked about one fallacy today. We talked about fallacies. A fallacy today is just denying somebody else's solution to a problem. And I actually wanted to talk about, I forgot to mention this. There's something we streamers do when we're playing a game, and we might be given a solution that's better than the solution we come up with. But I wanted to mention this is because streamers will shut down people and say no spoilers or things like that because it's more entertaining for us streamers to get it wrong and then have to solve the problem out sometimes. It's more entertaining and creates better content. And it's more entertaining and creates better content if streamers get something wrong, kind of have to work it out. And then maybe we can even, as streamers, make that mistake funny in some way or entertaining at the very least. And so streamers, for example, is one of those things where you might get shut down for trying to help somebody, because that's something I noticed in myself. Interesting. You're always worried you're boring people if you get stuck in a game. Well, you can. Oh, definitely. You could definitely, but it's depending on how you're stuck and what you do with that time. So if you're stuck and you're just walking around in a circle, and you don't solve that thing for an hour, yeah, you're probably going to bore a lot of people. You definitely don't want to be stuck for long, but as long as you're providing entertainment during that getting stuck. So an example for this would be when we do Phoenix Wright. Speaking of tomorrow morning, Phoenix Wright, can join in for that. We'll be doing more Phoenix Wright voice acting, but using that as an example, I get stuck. I'll get stuck sometimes, and yeah, it gets boring if I'm not making some wild claim and trying to solve the issue. But what makes it entertaining is that getting it wrong and then getting it right. You are right, though. If you're stuck on something too long, that's going to get boring to them, especially if they know the answer. So it's kind of a two-headed thing. Is it can be entertaining to see somebody solve it, but it's not so much entertaining to watch somebody not having any idea what they're doing. Plenty of times I've been left not knowing what I'm doing, and I know I can just feel it being boring. It goes back to that confidence thing. If you have confidence in being wrong, it's funny. If you have confidence in being right and you're right, if you're wrong and you have confidence that you're right, it's funny. If you're right and you have confidence and you're right, you get through it. So either way, the confidence makes it more entertaining. And then we get less confident in ourselves when we get lost and get stuck. As a streamer, what I would suggest doing actually, and it's something I really prefer not to do, but is to have a walkthrough available, so if you see yourself starting to get stuck, then you can quickly see what you're supposed to do, so that you're not, because we're creating entertainment. We're not like a lot of content creators out there do what they want to do, and then we don't see, like, a lot of content creators will do what they want to do and then not care about the people that are watching them do what they want to do. They think that they can just do what they want to do, and then a million people are going to come at them, and then they'll just be famous. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We, as content creators, are working to keep the attention of people, just like Netflix and all those people. We have the added benefit of being small knit communities, so we often are friends, right? Often friends that are all hanging out together in a defined space. In this case, it's on this live stream. People that find their way here, I hope, enjoy it, and that I try to do what I can to make it more entertaining. And then I really care about what is entertaining here, which does promote less of a family sort of feel, because I don't want you guys to be here because you're trying to support me, right? I don't want you to be here a year later and be like, oh, I'm here because I've been supporting you all this time. I'd rather hear, oh, I'm here because I just think your content is funny and I like to watch it and I like to be a part of it, you know. That would mean more to me than somebody just jumping in here because they want to support me. Because in the end, most people are not going to support content creators. I mean, how many people go into a Dr. Disrespect stream and be like, bro, Dr. Disrespect, I'm watching you just to support you. No, they're watching because they're entertained. And they have a good time. They're not there because they're supporting their favorite content creator. They're watching their favorite content creator is their favorite content creator because they're entertaining. And that's probably why I changed so much, is because I get bored of a game. I get bored of various things, and then I just don't want to do that thing anymore because I'm bored of it. And if I'm bored of something, man, does it show. You guys, Dr. Disrespect, you got canceled? No, Dr. Disrespect is great. He's a fantastic entertainer. He's still going. He streams. He was just streaming today. He was streaming Warzone today. I was even watching part of it. He's a fantastic entertainer. He's not even disrespectful. That's just a moniker he uses. Like, he's not even disrespectful. So anybody that thinks that the man is disrespectful because his name is Dr. Disrespect clearly has not watched his content. He's actually not that disrespectful. No more than an average player on any game, pretty much. Like, he's not really that disrespectful. He's actually very funny, and when he's actually dealing with people on with voice basis, he's actually very nice. He seems to be a very nice person, and people just see his name and immediately make a snap decision. That really goes into the yes-anding thing that we were talking about all day today, is people see names and things like that and immediately make a snap decision. Like Dr. Disrespect. People make that snap decision with me too. I used to go by a name called a Rabid Kitten. That was my name, and it was because I was playing first-person shooters, and it would be really funny to see. It would be really funny to see the things called like, you got killed by a rabid kitten. And then so that was the joke behind it. So, but every time anybody saw that name, they immediately assumed I'm a chick. And now, with my name having the word kinky in it, now people for a long time either think I'm gay or a woman, and they're usually men. men will automatically assume that because my name is Kynky, that I am gay, because in their mind the word kinky means gay, and or it means woman, because they think of something to do with sex. And I'm trying to move it off of that and be like a kink in a machine, or a kink in a hose, like where you block the water off, or like if you put a wrench inside some gears, you kinked up the machine, So I'm trying to change that thing of me, but my account is still that other way. And so people still think that to this day. You struggle with this because the games you like playing don't seem to be ones that people find entertaining to watch. Well, so the thing is that with if you have problems with that, you have to find a game that you both enjoy and people like to watch. And that's really where my problem's been, Halo. Like, you've been with the channel a long time. You've seen me do a lot of different content on the channel. And in the end, what I end up doing is I try to find content that I both enjoy to do and that people like to watch, because I'm well aware that people don't like to watch half the things I do. And the other thing is like Phoenix Wright, for example, does not have the most viewership. In fact, I think it's hurting my channel overall, but I enjoy doing it, and the people that watch it enjoy it so much that they can't wait for the next episode. So even though I enjoy Phoenix Wright, and I know it's not that popular, and it might even be harming my channel, I really enjoy it. And I enjoy that everybody that watches it enjoys it so much. So that makes me keep on doing it, and while trying to find other things that people like this, what we're doing right now, I love this. I love just talking with you guys. We used to do talking streams all the time and just ran out of topics. Speaking of, if you guys have topics that you want to talk about in the future, then write them in the comments. Like after the stream is over, write them in the below comments, and then maybe I'll add it. Like Interstellar gave us the idea of energy. Speaking of, hi Interstellar. And we're not talking about energy today because, as I said, it's very hard to connect critical thinking to energy, and the ways that we can connect it to critical thinking requires more discussion about critical thought in general. So if you guys have an idea for one of these podcasts, put it in the description and tell me how it relates to critical thought. If you're just putting in random words or something and I can't connect it to how to use critical thought and how we're thinking, how we're using our brains, then I'll have to probably skip it. You love to do talking streams, but you're not super talkative, and you have no idea how long you keep it up before you run out of things to say. Well, that's the great thing, is that often it's hard to run out of things to say if you have an idea ahead of time. So, like what I have here is I have a notepad over here that tells me things that I thought of ahead of time to talk about in case I run out of things to say. Like today we were talking about the first rule funny. I have 3 things written down for it. I have yes and, which we talked about, improv, the improv parts of which we talked about, and why it matters, which has kind of been the whole point of the whole ending of this. Speaking of, we're about at the end of today's podcast, because we've been going for about an hour, and I'm not gonna do what we did last week, going for extra hour and a half. But we'll still be continuing. We'll still be continuing this podcast next week, and then I was thinking to next week we would talk about the importance of subtlety, which is like where I talked about the shadow and why that matters, why subtlety matters in entertainment and in really everything, subtle expressions, subtle subtle shadows, subtle sounds make all the difference in everything. And I think it's super important. And we all would find it super important. So if you want to do a talking stream, then you definitely gotta make something like this. Gotta make some interesting setup for yourself. A lot of people have desks, or they have backgrounds with flashing lights and stuff like that, or they'll just have a black background or something. I don't know. Any number of things. You definitely want to have some sort of setup. And if you have other people on your podcast, then that's a whole other thing you got to take into account, which is something that we may do eventually. I don't know. We'll have to see. But thank you guys so much for joining today. Guys, thank you so much for joining off Stay Collab. Yeah, that's another thing. If you do just a talking stream by yourself, you have to do all the talking yourself. That's why I have you guys up on chat over here, so you guys can so we can kind of discuss things, right? But yeah, if you have somebody else to podcast too, then you guys can talk about whatever, and then it feeds off into other conversations about things, which can be really crazy. But any case, today we talked about the importance of yes-anding in comedy and really life in general. Being able to accept information when it's either important to a joke or important to life. And then using that information to both better yourself, be it make a joke funnier or understand a new idea in how to think about stuff, how to understand the world around you or people around you, any number of things. It's important. It's important to not shut down information when it could benefit you. That is the whole point of today. With the yes and the first rule of funny is don't shut people down and accept when they have information that could benefit you. It's really important. It's really important, and makes for some hilarious jokes. Absolute hilarious jokes, guys. Okie dokie. Thank you guys so much for joining. Let's go ahead and call it for today. If you guys like today, give me a big old hands up in the air. I want to try this for a few weeks, and maybe we continue it. Maybe I stop it. But everybody that is here does seem to enjoy it. And the more I talk about critical thought is definitely where people enjoy it more. And where I'm talking about more real life stuff for sure. Bye. See you later, Halo. So I'm going to take you guys... I'm going to take you guys on a redirect over to somebody. It'll just be a straight redirect, not a raid thing. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to redirect you guys over to Francis. Let me grab his link and set this up. And I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. We'll be doing another one of these next week. Oh, look at that. I didn't even have to get his link. It was already there. We'll do another one of these next week, guys. And we'll talk about... we will then talk about importance of subtlety. Maybe I'll change something else. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'll have to see. I will have to see. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for joining, hanging out. Tomorrow morning, Phoenix Wright. If you're watching the replay of this, check out the Phoenix Wright. See if you like that. I do all the voice acting. Could be fun. You might enjoy it like so many other people seem to have. Guys, you guys are awesome. Aren't you guys? Okay, guys. Until tomorrow, stay amazing, sleep well, and toodaloo.